Action.
Okay, guys, so we're on the other side of the Conciergerie right now. This is called Place Dauphine. This is kind of a experimental idea that Henry IV had to kind of make a neighborhood here on the edge of the cité with shops and apartments on the street. So it's kind of like the first apartment block. Uh, so it was really successful. It's kind of the precursor to Place des Vosges if you've ever been there. You'll see that now people like to play bocce ball here. They call it pétanque in French. People love to play. The old men in Paris play it at every park. This is not just this park. They also play this really weird game with like sticks that are kind of half cut off. I don't know. I have no idea what it is, but it looks really fun, and people really like to play it. But on the other side, I was kind of finishing. I kind of just briefly touched on the French Revolution, and I want to tell you about the French Revolution because it's kind of my favorite part of French history. So it's really important to go back to the late 18th century and understand what it was like to be a monarch, okay, and their relationship with the city of Paris. So they're completely isolated on Versailles. They've been there. The monarchy's been there for 100 years. By the time Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette are there, they're so used to this way of life, that they have no real connection. They don't even want to come to Paris. Louis XVI likes to make keys and go hunting. That's about the extent of his interest in the state affairs. Marie Antoinette is a young girl who became queen, and she never really wanted to be, but she just was, and she was very fickle and capricious. She liked to gamble and have parties and gossip and stay in her little Petit Trianon and just kind of be away from the court, so much that she alienates the court away from herself. So they're kind of alienating themselves here in Versailles, and Paris is kind of growing on its own. Paris has got this new class of bourgeoisie that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's also got a lot of workers. It's got a lot of lawyers. It's got a lot of students. The bourgeoisie is getting more and more intelligent. You also have the Enlightenment that just happened, which is huge to understand the French Revolution. The mind of people is changing. They're questioning authoritarian power, especially divine birth power. They're really, man is awakening. He's thinking more liberal ideas. He's thinking that he himself is of importance, that everybody is kind of born to be equal. So the ideas are turning against the monarchy, and they're turning against Christianity as well. A couple things, really important things happen in France. Grain shortage, not a lot of bread. You want to see Parisian people get pissed off? Take away their baguettes. They love bread. Another really important thing happens just before Louis XVI, spending lots of money on the court life, but he's also spending a lot of money on a war called the American Revolution. And the American Revolution, Louis XVI wanted to piss off his rival, England, and he did, and he got bankrupt from it. He was using money that he didn't have. The Americans won, but France lost because France didn't have any money. So this was another reason as well that the people in the cities were feeling this revolutionary fervor. I mean, America had just been liberated, and now the French feel that they want some kind of liberation. So what happens is the king needs to raise taxes. So he calls what is called the Estates General. Now the Estates General is a sort of parliament, but a really ineffectual one. They haven't even met in over 100 years. It's really, there's no real precedent. They don't really know how to use it. But the Estates General gets called. It's divided into three parts. It's divided in the clergy, who have equal part with the nobility, and then the third estate is actually just everybody else. So most of the people fall into the third estate. So the third estate, as I was saying, they're smarter now. They're educated. They see this as an opportunity to be heard, because before they've never been heard. So they put in that they should be represented doubly, because they're a larger percentage of the population. Seeing as this is an opportunity to kind of level out the power of the nobility and the bourgeoisie and the king allows them to be represented doubly. So you have the clergy equal part to the nobility, and then the third estate is double the size. Of course, the clergy and the nobility don't like this, but when they meet for the Estates General, they have a big meeting, and it's a lot of pomp and circumstance. Nothing gets done. The king just wants to pass taxes. And everybody's pissed off about this because the king obviously bankrupted the country and now wants everybody else to pay for it. And so the 30 states starts meeting separately. They start kind of getting ideas. Anyway, they get locked out of the States General, and they decide that they're going to make an oath right then and there to start their own National Assembly. So they go to the closest place, which is the tennis court, and they decide to make an oath to themselves that they're going to start a National Assembly. And so they make it, they name it. They also say they're going to write a constitution, and they're going to write the rights of man. And so in this tennis court, they take the oath. But this is largely bourgeoisie, so these are largely educated men. They still need their fighting force. So meanwhile, they're instigating people in the city. People are hungry. And finally, on the 14th of July, 1789, people get so instigated by the high prices of bread that they take to the streets and they want to take down the monarchy. So they go and they're searching for arms all over the city. Finally, they hear that there's arms in the Bastille. They go to the Bastille demanding that they let them in, that they can take the arms, that the Paris militia can take control. They don't. There's a little bit of a delay, and eventually they break in and they put the head of the Bastille, they put his head on a stick. So pretty brutal. And it continues to be more and more brutal. Finally, the people get so sick of the king that they actually march out to Versailles, demand that he come back to Paris. Marie Antoinette and the king, they move back to the Louvre, and they're kind of held prisoner inside the castle. Just to keep this in mind, not everybody was against the king. There were still royalists. They were for a constitutional monarchy. Other people were super radical. You had every face of the spectrum, and that's what made it so messy. Finally, the king, thinking his last resort would be to escape, he and Marie Antoinette try to escape secretly in the middle of the night. They get caught at the border, and they're brought back to the city. The king's charged with treason. The radicals see it as their opportunity to take the monarchy power and just completely crush it, and they do. They chop off his head in the guillotine. A few years later, Marie Antoinette will meet the same fate. She's going to be held in the conciergerie for the last few days of her life. She's put on trial. She's not just put on trial for treason, she's also put on trial for pedophilia. They had taken her children away from her, and they actually put it in the child's head that she had been molesting him. He went on the stand, testified against his mother, and she gets convicted of pedophilia and sentenced to the guillotine. She's taken to the guillotine. What they did when they came and got you in the conciergerie, they'd put you on a wooden cart, and they would take you on the cart all the way to the Place de Concorde. That was called the Place de la Révolution back then, and they would march you up, and they would put you on the platform and chop off your head. And so this was known as the Reign of Terror. 2,600 people were going to be put to death. 40,000 people during this time are actually going to die total in France. The leader was Robespierre. He was the guy leading the charge to destroy any enemy of the revolution. Finally, he's going to meet his own fate. He's going to get his head chopped off as well. And it's going to take a couple years, but then another very, very famous man is going to rise to power. The people of Paris are going to be sick of all the confusion, all the chaos, and they're going to allow him to become the first emperor, Napoleon Bonaparte. So I hope that got it in your head, the revolution. But let's move on to the next spot.